Welcome to the continuation of our B44.2 RC car build, and just want to point out to you that you need this sheet because the part bags aren't listed on the instruction manual, and you think like as detailed as the instruction manual is, they don't list it on there. But just want to point out to you that the differences between the front gearbox and the rear gearbox is that the front gearbox has a longer CVA dog bone, and that is the only difference. Otherwise the parts are just identical, so you really wouldn't know. So just for your reference, the front gearbox has a longer CVA in there. Alright, let's get started. We're gonna need a CVA glue, and we're going to need grease. So you could use any kind of grease. I've noticed like in the RC store, Losi has a grease, Horizon Hobby has different greases. What's even more interesting, I think, is that you know, the RC companies package grease, basically, you know, automotive grease that really costs like, you know, something like $2 a can, or you get like a whole pint or a quart for like $5, and it's very interesting that the RC company, you know, just bundle the same kind of automotive grease and charges like $2 for it. But anyways, just a little tangent down there, but it does work very well. We see it slip right out of the CVA dog bone, but one of my friends pointed out that he actually uses a Lucas Oil grease instead of black grease, so it's one of those things that I just really want to try at some point. So next step is to grab the pin, and we just want to thread that pin in. So, and before we do that, we just want to hook it up to the out drive and just find the right slot. And then we'll grab our pin, and my hands are just greasy, so I'm dropping all these parts. So I just want to like push it in so I lock in. There we go. It's locked in, and it's all great, and nothing looks like it's gonna come out. So there we go. I'm gonna grab that spring and get that locked in. There we go. And when you put in this spring tensioner thing here, you want to make sure that it's not, you know, it's 90 degrees to the pin that you dropped in. Otherwise it would just come flying right out. So everything looks great. It rotates. It's very smooth, and it's gonna work very well. It looks really cool there. Alright. One thing that's not mentioned in the instruction booklet is that there's a small locking screw that you could use too. So I'm just going to go ahead and screw that in and lock in that pin one step more. So I'm not sure why that was omitted from the manual. So it's very weird. You have this part and then it's not mentioned anywhere in the manual, but that's where it would go. So that's our top tip for today. And I'm going to go ahead and open up my new bottle of CA glue here. And all it takes is just really just one drop of CA glue, and you kind of seal up that ring there. And this is done just to keep everything locked in just a little bit more. And you see, I'm just putting in just one drop. Also, just so you know, you should, before you do this, you should be in a room with very good ventilation. I was doing this indoors, and they just had terrible ventilation, so just had to rush to find a window to open super quick. But just so you know, CA glue does dry very quickly, and after that, you can go ahead and just start working again. So just give it about like a good 5 or 10 minutes to thoroughly dry before you move on to this step. Next step is just to put on the ball bearings, and then you put on a washer. So the washer actually goes on the outsides of the bearings. So I put the washer in, then I put the first bearing in, then I put in the second bearing, then I put in the washer in. So that goes on the outside. Next, we're going to go ahead and put on the gear. And then I already threaded in the pin. I threaded the pin in previously because I just didn't want you to watch through the torture of me putting the pin on and dropping it and all that nonsense. I'm actually dropping a lot of parts because my hands are still greasy from having all the black grease there. Yeah, there I go. Put in the pin there. That time it's stuck. Alright, let's go ahead and put this in here. And just so you know, just out of the kit, these gears are very rough. You need to actually sand them or cut them down if you don't have sandpaper. But I prefer to sand them down just a little bit, then you have to wash it off because it does go in the gearbox. You don't want to have just extraneous particles everywhere, but make sure you just kind of like wipe it off or brush it off a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and push this this gear here and just try to get this one locked down a little bit more. And just for your information, it's a little tight. It is very tight fitting. Sometimes when you're working with pieces inside a gearbox, things are tight fitting, but also just so you're aware, if things seem too tight fitting, it might be that you're inserting it in wrong. So just kind of like a fine line between things working out and then things not working out. So just a little tip is that if you're before you screw everything in, just make sure everything's fitting and everything is rotating and everything is moving okay. If you notice that something is catching or it's not seems like it's fitting correctly, just double check. You might have the part orientated the wrong way, or it's or you forgot a washer, or you have the ball bearing in the wrong area. But pretty much this is the easiest one to do. You just fit this one right in. So we just have to watch for the spacing. So I'm just going to make sure that I have my spacing correct. There we go. And the outdrive there is working. Very cool. And that gear is spinning okay. There we go. So first it didn't want to go in, now it's like falling out. It's pretty funny. But that one is working very good. Alright, let's go ahead and grab in the differential. And when you drop in the differential, this is where this is actually the orientation for the front. So there we go. Oddly enough, if you place it in the other way and you try to close it, it doesn't quite fit. So I'm gonna go ahead and put in some Diff Grease in here and just get that lubricated a little better. And the thing with Diff Grease is that you could actually overdo it, and I admit I'm one of the racers that overdoes it with too much grease or lube or whatnot. It's not like my gearbox is leaking Diff Grease or anything by any means, but but sometimes, like, if you put in too much, you would have some Diff Grease leak out. But by contrast, though, it's better than, at least I feel it's a little bit better than not having enough diff grease in there and having everything, you know, dried up and dried out. Conversely, I've also seen racers that believe that you shouldn't put in any diff grease in there, and so they've kind of like the opposite philosophy, where it's they don't put in any lube in there and run it, you know, without lube. But I don't know. I can't see anybody running differential without some kind of lubrication. But just so you're aware that you know, if you do put in too much, you should kind of try to wipe it off or wipe it away. But I'm just making sure that all the gears are turning and kicking. Here we go. There we go again, adding in more diff grease than I really need. But I don't want this to dry out. I want this gearbox to last a little bit longer. So, but generally, about every 2 to 3 races, you probably would end up rebuilding out the gearbox. So, or probably 4 or 5 races if you're kind of a casual racer. I'm kind of a throttle jockey. I pull the throttle a little too hard sometimes, so I always have to go back and check my gearbox. But there we go, making sure everything's nice and set there, and it looks good. So I'm going to go ahead and screw everything in. When you screw everything in, you could just, you know, kind of like put on all your screws and screw everything in kind of like a clockwise or counterclockwise order. I'm a real firm believer in a star pattern. So a star pattern is basically just, if I put in one screw on one side, then I go diagonal, and then I put in the second screw diagonally, and then I put in the third screw opposite of the first screw, and then I go diagonal again, and then put in the fourth screw diagonally. Then, you know, then you have like the last 2 screws, because in this gearbox you have like 6 screws. So then I just put it in the middle, and then I finish it out. The advantage, I believe, with the star pattern is that you distribute the pressure more evenly as you're sealing out the case. For example, if you were to put in all the screws in a clockwise order, one side of the gearbox feels like it's sealed better, and then the other side feels like it's not sealed very well at all. And, you know, once again, it's just personal preference, and you can do it whatever you like, but that would be my tip for you. And let's go ahead and finish this one out. And it should be a pretty relatively straightforward build with the front gearbox here. And it's kind of exciting. It's going to be a fun 4x4 buggy once we're done with it here. Oh yeah, check it out. It's working. I love the way it's spinning. It's very responsive. I will have to, like, you know, break it in and just tighten it down, but I really love the action on this. It's very nice. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for us building out the rear.